All right, this build is a whole lot different than others I've tackled and is considerably bigger in scale. Now, I have never built a boat before, and honestly, I hadn't even considered it until I stumbled across a forum post about a Port Ludlow pram build. For a closer look at what a pram is, you can click on the link above where I dive into the style of boat. But for those that are not so nautically inclined like myself, it's basically a fancy name for a rowboat for fly fishing geeks. This build was no joke. It pushed me to learn some new techniques, and it reinforced my deep-seated hatred for sanding. And it forced me to actually follow directions, which, by the way, are available from the Port Ludlow Fly Fishing Club in the link in the description below. So, let's jump into it. This truly is a simple boat to build. It takes just one sheet of plywood for the bottom, so there are no seams required. And supporting it all is just a single frame piece called the spreader. This spreader, as well as all the other main components of the build, are made from mahogany, whether it's sapele or okume for the marine grade plywood. The spreader that you see is outlined in the plan set and required a fancy lap joint shored up with epoxy. From what I gathered, you can adjust the overall spreader dimensions, and what you see here is the spreader set to 46 inches at the bottom for a super wide, super stable boat without going over the width of a plywood sheet. Speaking of plywood, it is time to start cutting the transom and the bow. All right, remember I am building for two. I'm gonna get 2 transoms out of this, or 3. If you ever need a reason to measure something 4 times, try using 12mm okume marine grade ply. This stuff is about $190 a sheet. Like the spreader dimensions, you can adjust this as well to fit your needs. I stuck with the traditional look that the Port Ludlow pram has with the curved bow, but my buddy Jeff is also building the same pram, and he decided to go with a flat bow. So what I'm gonna do, just to make sure these are even, is I'm gonna cut here first, and then take that and flip it. Because, yeah, I don't really know how good that arch is gonna be. So we're gonna get it close. With the bow and the transom done, we can now jump into the 6mm okume plywood sides. Again, the stress level is elevated because this stuff is freaking pricey. We're in the part of it where we have our transom cut, we have our bow cut, and now we're gonna get the angles set for our sides. So we've already done that. Jeff has transcribed it over here because these are 17 inches top to bottom. The sides are 16. That means we're gonna have an angle on the front and an angle on the back. Sounds really confusing, but I'm gonna show you what I mean. You have a 17-inch piece right here, and then a 16-inch piece. So obviously you have to have some sort of an angle. And the idea is, so we're gonna go ahead and trace that out. Throughout the entire build, my Grizzly track saw was working overtime, and it did an amazing job. So should you be looking for a good track saw, I will put a link to this one in the description below. With all the bare essentials ready, I finished off the spreader with a heavy roundover bit on my router. And then I jumped into what sounded like the most hokey step in the build, and that is assembling this boat with duct tape. Check it out, I made a boat! Oh, looks like a floating coffin at this point, but I'm gonna put that center strut in there and hopefully it'll look more like a boat. That was a little sketchy. Basically, the big takeaway here is that you should buy the best duct tape possible and measure the placement of your spreader really, really well to make sure that your boat's not crooked at all. I'm no mariner, but a crooked boat sounds pretty crappy. Now the final touch is slapping a bunch of marine grade thickened epoxy into each corner. This is called a fillet weld, and it takes a little getting used to, but by the end, it looks great. You'll definitely want to use blue painter's tape to define the width of the fillet and save yourself a ton of sanding later on. As the fillet material sets up, say an hour or 2 after working it into place, you can come back and remove the tape. Now the tape is not something that you want to forget about and come back the next day, because you'd have to sand the blue tape away in its entirety. That would take an eternity. So that covers what I consider to be phase one of the build, and on the next one we'll make this little fella seaworthy with a bottom and copious amounts of epoxy and fiberglass. Thank you for watching, liking, sharing, and subscribing, and I will catch you on the next one.